Hello, listeners. Welcome to episode 83 of Push to Plat. It is a special episode today. One of the wonderful things about doing this show is to speak to gamers, content creators, even game devs from around the world. And look, it's wonderful to speak to so many different people, but there are certain guests, returning guests, that I always look forward to speaking to every year. It is a travesty on my part, listeners, that we haven't spoken this year at all, I believe. The last time on the 7th of December, I am, of course, talking of the wonderful guide writer, content creator, event director, newly returned event director at pst.org. We've named her Queen of the Indies, and I'm sure you'll agree that is well deserved. She's also a streamer. She is, of course, the wonderful Velvet. How are you doing today, Velvet?
I'm doing well. How are you? And hello.
Look, I can't complain here at all, Velvet. Now, look, why don't we? Because you said you're a returning, event director, as you said, and then you did mention the site. I haven't really had anyone on yet, that's involved in that site as much as you. What do you think of the update?
It's taking some getting used to. I mean, I do love it. Like, it was very much long overdue and something that we needed desperately. It's such a drastic change that I think all of us are kind of just like, whoa, like this is a whole new site now. But I like it.
I imagine you probably knew it was coming or whatever, but I don't keep my ear to the ground on these things. And then just one day I randomly went there and I must have touched the button on my phone and everything was black, because you can now change the color of the background, which is wonderful, I think. And I was like, whoa, it was a little bit too much for me all of a sudden. But I do remember it's a frequent point, that's come up before from guests, is that, it definitely needed an update. It wanted some fresh blood in it. So it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, we're pretty stoked about it. We knew it was coming for a long time, and it kind of became a running joke of just like, soon, it's coming soon. And finally one day we were just like, all right, here we go. We're going live. So
Now, what we're going to do today, if it's okay, Velvet, is we are going to talk, it'll be rolled into what you've been playing, I suppose, as well, but we are going to talk your favorite indie games throughout this year, if we can do so. But I wanted to start with a comment that you made recently, and you said here that, I can't just use the word indie game anymore because it's too broad, for the game the game style you like within this. And I wanted you to elaborate a little bit on that, because we play a lot of games or whatever, and I know many of our listeners do as well. And when we hear the word indie, obviously independent studio, I think we have a preconceived notion, perhaps it's not always fair anymore for many of these games. So when you hear the term indie game now, and in context of you seeing it so broadly, I suppose, what do you think now when you see indie games, as opposed to what did you think maybe 3 or 4 years ago?
yeah, so I've always kind of saw it as like, it's always been independent studio, like somebody small company doing this, small publisher. Like, the keyword was small, like small team, et cetera, et cetera. But then you look at the games that are coming out from a lot of independent studios, and they are just massive and gorgeous, and just, you don't think of indie when you look at them, but they are by definition an indie game because they came from an independent developer. So I don't know what to call the games that I play outside of indies. It's hard to describe, but more of like the cartoony, artsy, like the stuff that people can really take a chance on with like emotions and the storyline. Like, they don't have to sell to the masses. Like, it's just very niche games. So whatever that can be qualified as, those are the indies that like I kind of go to.
Yeah, I like that. And then one of the other things I find really interesting is, like, three or 4 years ago or whatever, when I sort of started gaming more hardcore, I suppose, I'd pick up a lot of these games because they were thin on the ground. Like, there was maybe 1 or 2 a week, if that. They were very sort of sparse or whatever. Now, 2020, and considering the pandemic as well, but even off the back of last year, there are so many. I mean, almost every day there's a new indie, broadly, game releasing or whatever else. It's just become like almost a tidal wave of wonderful games, I suppose.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of overwhelming. I don't think there's any better word for it. Just the amount that come out every week. And it's kind of like a woe is me for like content creators, but like it's hard to cover them all. So I know there's really good ones that I've missed this year because I'm trying to like just keep up with some sort of status quo with them. But yeah, they are. And I love it though. 2020 needed the kind of releases to keep us all occupied and busy and distracted from everything going on. So they kind of get a pass this year for me with the massive amount of releases. But yeah, no, it's been phenomenal. Just it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it has. Now, another thing I heard you say recently on the previous podcast there was that, this year or this last year before, you sort of stepped away from using, and I'll probably say it poorly here, so please correct me, but, you sort of maybe stepped away from using other sites as a crutch for getting your content out or whatever, and you really sort of focused on doing it yourself. And one of the things you said is that you'd learnt a lot from doing that. Now, one of the tragic things, as I said, for myself is that I engage with a lot of people, but a lot of the people that really interest me, I only speak to sporadically, like yourself, and in the last year or so, I don't really know what you've been up to, I suppose, hugely. I see the guides you put out, but I sort of, maybe you could talk a little bit about that process of what you meant by stepping away and how you found that journey, I suppose, doing it more on your own, if that's a fair comment.
Yeah, no. It's kind of like a double parter for it. The crutch comment was made referencing my first stint as an event director on PST and how much I relied on that site to like do all the work for me in regards to like PR and getting my name out there. Like, oh, it's on this site, it'll be fine. Like it'll carry itself. So when I was on my own, I realized I had to do that all on my own and it's a lot of work, and it kind of it didn't kill guide writing, so to speak, but it definitely made me realize that like if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do this for every single game. Like I need to like kind of pick and choose. But it also opened my eyes to what more is available in the gaming community out there, and it's a lot of really fun stuff. Like this year has been super PR heavy for not even just myself, but every Friday, it's either Thursday or Friday, there's the pitch your game tag that happens on Twitter with all these indie developers coming up and just like, here's my game. And it's really fun to like communicate with them and talk with them and go back and forth and kind of build a relationship with them. And from that, I learned a lot about game publishing and also game development as a whole, which is, I know I mentioned it a couple of times, but I haven't mentioned it in a while, but I am working on my own video game right now. So that's one thing. And I actually just did my first, about a month and a half ago, I had a little voice acting part in a game. So yeah, trying to like kind of broaden my horizons with that, because there's a lot that you can do in this, what do you even call it, career gaming world, whatever. So yeah, this year has just been kind of about trying to find my place, even if it's not necessarily with guides, just something that makes me happy and that I can build upon. So
that's exciting. I think that's very, very exciting. I have to ask then, do you think it's changed the way that you game? And to sort of put it in context or whatever, I have a feeling that sometimes I enjoy, now I don't obviously, create guides. I don't do the work you do. I don't, interact with these people making games by any stretch or whatever. But I think I enjoy the dabbling more than I do playing the games now. Do you think you're transitioning to that point, or are they two distinct things?
No, I think I enjoy, I think I enjoy games more now after building like the connections and relationships with people, but not in the way that might seem obvious. Like we were talking earlier about games with glitches and how do you like get past them? And it's like, well, I know the person who made this game, so I kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt and try to finish it for him. But when you build the relationships, or even when you just start following a game from the very first screenshot to the first trailer to the release date, like if you're there along the whole way, when you're playing the game, you notice the things that they put in there. And you're like, oh, that's from this. That's from this. And you kind of know more about the, like what they were going for with the game versus if you're just kind of going in blind, just like, I don't know what this is about. What is this? Why is this like this? Like, it's a lot easier to have your questions answered if you're more involved with the whole process.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I often come at it from the other way, whatever art form it is. I prefer to know as little as possible about the creator to start with, and then to experience the work or whatever, and then I delve into it. And I'm thinking here a little bit of the Hello Games crew that they splintered off this year and made The Last Campfire, which I believe you played. Now, I played that game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Perhaps we'll talk about it today or whatever else. I had no knowledge of where it came from. And then when I read that, it made me feel even, I don't know, even better about the experience to know that, a group that, they've been through the real ringer, and they worked
They
through.
have.
And then
Yeah.
to produce something so different as well, it really, I don't know, it almost inspired me, I think, more.
It is. Yeah. No, Hello Games deserves like an award and like 10 awards. Maybe a little dramatic, but they could have easily just thrown in the towel after No Man's Sky. They could have just given up. They could have, taken the L, just went separate ways. We're never doing this again. But they have grown so much from such a horrible start that when The Last Campfire got announced, it was like, oh, do we trust them? Like, are we going to trust them this time? And it ended up being really, really delightful. And it's like, okay, yes, I'm glad you guys didn't just give up. Like, I'm really glad they pushed through.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be said about that. Now, I tread carefully here because obviously it can work both ways, and we have to pay service to it, Velvet, because it is the biggest game for some people this year. Definitely the biggest game releasing in the last week or so. This is the Cyberpunk 2077, releasing to varied opinions or whatever. But you had a very interesting point before we started, and I've been reading this through many articles now online as well. Why don't we just talk a little bit about the situation with Cyberpunk, perhaps, and releasing without releasing codes for reviewers or for anybody, I suppose, to see the
Yeah.
game. Obviously, you work closely with indie devs, you get codes, so you get to experience these things. How do you feel about that?
This might be the most angry that I sound on a podcast, so I'll try to keep it like as clean as possible. But I think that was really, really shady what CD Projekt Red did, and it's really hard for me to like if you release a broken game, just don't give up on it, patch it, that's fine. But to actually withhold review codes so that reviewers and content creators can't tell people how bad it is so they can keep their little pre-order money is so shady. That is so shady. Like they wanted this massive day one release, so they withheld all these problems and just unleashed it onto the world at the same time. Like they knew how bad it was and wanted to keep that from everybody for as long as possible. It's like, so shady.
Look, it definitely is. And the funny thing is, like, I read that, now they're offering refunds on the PS4 or the Xbox One, the base editions, because of the issues with the game or whatever, if you want to pursue that or whatever. And, when I read that, I was like, well, sometimes you get burnt, with games or whatever. And, like, I have faith that they'll improve it over time, like they did with The Witcher. And so I'm like, some you win, some you lose. And then I was talking about it with my partner the other night, and he's like, well, it's all right for you. You just buy games all the time. But imagine, if you only can buy one game a month or whatever else, and it was a full price game, you'd put aside the money for it. And, admittedly, buying it on the base systems at this time is probably dicey on you as well. But, still, if they release it, it should work to some degree. Then, and he said, like, imagine how you'd feel. And that's a really interesting point, I suppose, isn't it? That, it was a full price game that didn't release with an early access tab on it.
Yeah, and it got delayed multiple times, even after going into pre-order. So the kind of anticipation of playing the game grew to a pretty extreme amount. So by the time it was getting ready to release, everybody was excited, like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And if I dropped 60 games on that, or 60 games, $60 on that, and had to wait a couple of months to play it, I'd be excited too. And then just to realize that your game of the year, the big release of the year, is less than par, it's kind of, I don't want to say heartbreaking because that's a little dramatic, but it's pretty demoralizing to just throw that kind of money at something and then not get nowhere near what you were expecting in return. Like, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I don't want to meander on this sort of negativity or whatever, but I just will throw out one other one. Now, I don't know if you ever played this game this year. I believe it was called Windbound. I think I have been.
Oh,
Yeah. And the reason I bring this game up is that I in full honesty, I have not played it or whatever else, but had Carlos Haas on a few weeks or a few months ago or whatever else, and this game came up, and he was like, he felt he got burnt by it didn't work, this blah blah blah. He bought it day one, and he was really pissed off about it or whatever else. And to be honest with you, I was thinking about it at the time, and after he ranted about it, I was like, well, maybe I just won't. And I sort of made the point then that, a studio like this, or he made the point that it's so important for an independent studio that the game works, when it comes out, because they really only get one chance at it, and if their first product, they don't fix it or it doesn't hit well, then, sure, you might have bought it this time, you've blown your money, but you're sure as hell are not going to buy something from them next time, even if it's a much better product, because you've just lost your faith there. And
right.
I just find this such a bizarre situation with a company like CD Projekt Red that has so much money, and so much success. Really, they have as much time as they need. There was no need to push it out this year at all, yet they still went ahead with it. And there's no way they could not have known it was going to look like this and work like this on the base consoles.
Yeah, it's kind of... This is probably going to be a horrible analogy, but it's the one that's currently stuck in my head. I know what Carlos was talking about, because I did play Windbound for I think maybe 4 to 5 hours, and it's a game with a lot of potential, but it's really broken, and just, I don't know. It was pretty sad, because it had so much potential to just be this great game, like this open world, sailing on these islands and defeating all these monsters, et cetera, and then it just ended up being like, oh, just another game, like, But with CD Projekt Red, I kind of see it as the poor man versus the rich man and a no parking zone. If the poor man parks in the no parking zone, he will get fined. It will hurt. He probably won't park there again. And that's like, the ticket is the community being like, how dare you do this? And then with a rich person, it's just like, oh, here's the fine. Like, they can just get away with it because they can. Like, they have the means to get away with it. And it's kind of sad that happens. Like, indie developers don't get nearly as many chances as AAA developers. And it's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles with that.
Mm-hmm. It's very true. It sounds like you're describing the Bethesda business model there as well. So I love that.
Oh, yeah.
But look, let's move across, because, at the start, I wasn't lying. There are a few people in the community that I take their games, suggestions or selections that they choose to play very seriously, because, Velvet, there are a ton of games that just, there are only so many 5 minutes in the day to play them in. So I have to be somewhat selective. But what I want to ask you before we get into some games now is that I see here that you've written around 28 or 29 trophy guides this year. Now, you're going to have to just be a little bit modest here for a second, but you've written guides for Seventh Sector, A Fold Apart, Active Neurons, Amnesia Rebirth, it's an interesting selection, Costume Kingdom, Creeks Dreams, Epic's Word Search, and Epic Word Search 2, Ether 1, Evans Remains, Hidden Through Time, Indie Calypse, Island Time, Little Big Workshop, Little Misfortune, Mad Age and the Guy, Mask of Mists, Need a Packet, Ooh Ascension, Potato, Space Crew, The Last Campfire, Tools Up, Totally Reliable Delivery Service, Touring Carts, Twin Breaker, and We Should Talk. What pushes you on to keep doing this? Huge amount, Velvet.
Oh, man, I feel like I need a vacation. When you said that number, I was like, no way, it's been that many. Like, really? Like, oh, geez, losing track of everything. So to be fair, a lot of the games that I play are short and sweet and straight to the point. There's very few that I play that are like 15 plus hours, let alone write a guide for. So a lot of these games can be, yeah, I would say maybe a weekend's worth of work, like maybe 3 to 4 days max. So when you divvy it up between the year, it's really not that bad. But I just love doing it. I just love doing it. So
Oh, look, we love that you love doing it. Well, I especially love it, Velvet. It's very helpful. But look, why don't we start moving into some of these games then? Because as we said, it's been a massive year or whatever for indie games in particular. Just before we do, there is one more thing that I would like to touch on, though, if we could, Velvet. This is, of course, the Game Awards of the Year, if you like, or Game of the Year Awards, or whatever they're going to call it. The big flashy spectacle, the Oscar of the Game Awards. It was an interesting show. I watched some of it. I'm not sure how much you watched or whatever else, but the indie section came and went very quickly. I believe if you blink, you would have missed it. What do you think that? How do you feel? Is that a fair comment, or that these awards don't seem to be taking these independent games seriously?
I think it's a real cop-out for the Game Awards. And if it was a time crunch issue, they can say that until their face turns blue, and I'll never believe it, because if the Swedish chef can have time to have a little bit, then they can have a little bit of time to give some attention to the indie community. And it's not even, that sounds really bitter, but it's more that like all these AAA games always get the attention. They always get the publicity. They always get the PR and the sales. But all of those developers and artists and whatever have you within the company all started as indie. They all came from indie developers. They all started small. So doing something as simple as an indie game award at the Game Awards is kind of like a throwback to them. Like, hey, we understand, like, we all came from this place. You guys are still keeping it going, and the games are incredible this year. Here's your spot on the Game Awards. So for them to just be like, here's the nominees, here's the winner, having a good night. Like, really? I didn't like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it always, the thing with these awards, and in every category as well, it always amazes me the games that they settle on as well, because there are so many games released throughout the year, and I peruse the people that pick them or whatever. And no disrespect, because obviously it's very different from, doing something else as your day job and having the time, to play these games or whatever else, and not have to create content. But I sometimes wonder just how many wonderful games these people haven't even played or heard about in the year. And particular, the indie nominees for this year, Hades, of course, a wonderful Nintendo PC title. Carry On, it's a wonderful, platformer-esque Metroidvania, I think, on Xbox. Fall Guys, which, look, I don't know, a free-to-play game or whatever else. Spelunky 2, well, history, and Spiritfarer, which I do believe is very good. I haven't got to it, but there are so many that I was shocked, didn't get any mention at all, perhaps compared to some of those.
Yeah, I thought at least, I play a lot of games that a lot of people have never even heard of, so it's not really anything to be surprised about. But with some of the newer games, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla was on there, so I'm really surprised Bugsnax was not up for Indie of the Year. And even The Last Campfire, we were just talking about that one. Like, that got announced at the Game Awards, didn't it, last year? Maybe the year before?
I believe so.
It was either that or E3, but I'm pretty sure it was the Game Awards. But yeah, just games that really did deserve at least a nomination. And then, I'll go to my grave saying I don't think Fall Guys deserved a nomination and took somebody else's spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, but then again, how do you cover 500 indie games that come out in a year? How do you choose the top 5? So I don't want that job, and I feel bad for whoever has that job.
Yes. Well, you know what that brings us to, Velvet. That's a wonderful segue to your favorite indie games of the year. We're going to make you choose out of these hundreds.
Yeah, if I can. Oh my gosh.
Why don't you throw some out, and we'll start there as a talking point.
Okay, I'm going to start at the beginning of the year and just kind of move down because I don't know what else to do. Okay, so the first one, and I already told him that it's getting my twin stick shooter game of the year, is Twin Breaker by Lily Mo Games. Really well done. That's the first game that he did with I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong, Colin Moriarty. I have so much trouble saying that. But yeah, I loved the such an innocent little story and just really easy gameplay. But it's the ball bouncer one. I don't know if you got a chance
Yes, yeah,
to play.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
did. Yeah. It's got a large amount of story in that as well, narrative.
It does, yeah. And they're actually coming out with Hyperoxia 2 to continue on with that story. So I'm kind of hoping they come out with a second Twin Breaker down the road. Just keep it going.
What I really like about hearing you talk about Lilimo Games, because I know you're a big fan of their work or whatever else, and you did make a comment as well recently. I'm throwing a lot of your words back at you, Velvet, but that's what I do.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
You did make a comment that one of the things you like about indie developers, or you like to see, is how they develop, how they grow, how their product, I suppose, becomes more refined. And you did mention this Lilimo Games, and it got me thinking, because I did play The Perils of Baking, which, look, I thought was, it was fine or whatever at the time. And then to see, I played Hyperoxia, which probably my favorite one. I really enjoyed that, and I did play Twin Breakers as well, and another fine effort or whatever else. But it's a really interesting point that with the AAA studios, you mentioned Assassins earlier, like, I don't ever think of the people behind the game, because, it's a massive studio. I definitely compare the games from one iteration to the other, but I don't actually consider the fact that the technical development of the people behind it, I suppose, is growing, or even their creative, license is growing as well in these games. And I think it's an exciting partnership for Lilimo Games, because I believe Colin Moriarty bought a controlling stake in that. So I imagine that they'll be well financed into the future. I think I'm correct there in saying that.
Yes.
So it's sort of exciting to see. It's almost like you're following the game, but you're really following the person behind the game, aren't you? When there are these individual developers.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Same with I may have mentioned them on the other one, but Treefall is another big one. Like, he's really good with like social media and bringing the gamers like day-to-day updates on his development process. And there's plenty more that I can even mention outside of that. But if you look at their day 1 versus their day 500, there is a clear and precise difference between the 2 days and the growth that they took. Whereas more AAA type games, you really don't see those dramatic differences unless there's like a new console out. That's usually when you see this is so much better than the other one. But during the generation, they're very, very small. But with indie games, it's like they have to keep getting better to like keep going. So it's really cool. It's one of my favorite things to watch for the indie developer gaming community.
I like that you put it that way, because it is. I mean, that's why I find that genre so attractive overall, because it's the only place I'm going to see something I've never seen before, and it's exactly
Right.
the same reason. You're never going to get a big company that can physically shift, their headspace. And the only exception to that, because they are growing bigger, but they did start in the indie sphere, and that's where they're focused. Of course, would probably be the publisher Annapurna Interactive. But then they're still small enough, I suppose, that they can seek out these individual creators as well, and fund them to help them reach fruition. But it really is the only place you're going to see something you haven't seen before, which I think is so exciting. But not every time, of course, but enough times.
Yeah, like it's kind of funny that you mentioned them, because I was talking about them with a friend the other day on how they are technically an indie studio, but they are the borderline of indie and AAA now. Like, they are doing really well for themselves, but man, they love taking chances, and they do it so well. Like, oh my gosh, their games are weird, but they're just really good. It's a great mix.
I totally agree. And of course, listeners, if you're not familiar with them, it's basically, I think Velvet would agree, it's basically a blanket stamp. If Annapurna Interactive are either involved in the publishing or the development side, it's worth a play. You don't need to know anything else about the
definitely.
game.
Yeah.
I feel that way. Yeah, good. So let's keep going. What else have you got for us?
Okay, so moving on from that one. Oh, this one, this is going to be PlayStation centric, because the sequel is already out on Steam. But Curious Expedition, I absolutely love that game, and I'm kind of disappointed it didn't get a very big release on console. I don't know if you played it. You probably did it. I don't know if it's your type of game.
No, see, what I love about this episode, listeners, is I have my notebook here, and I'm just going to be writing down games the whole time that I will be playing. Curious Expedition. So tell me about this. I've never heard of it.
So it's basically kind of like a roguelike kind of game where you play as these famous explorers that like all the history books and stuff, and you go through basically like 6 hot air balloon trips through different jungles and the Arctic and the deserts, and your main goal is to find these pyramids and then activate the pyramids and then go back, and you're going up against AI explorers, and whoever does it fastest gets more points, and you can sell stuff to get money, you can lose people on your trek. Like, it's really fun. It's a little RNG based, but it's really addicting. Like, the first day that I played it, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do like an hour for this. And then I looked at the clock and it was like 5 hours later. And I was like, oh no.
That's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah.
I love games like that.
Yeah, no, it's really good. If you do get a chance to check it out, it's a little slow to get into, but it's pretty worth it. It's really good.
Okay, that's on the list. Where are we going next?
Okay, so this one, I think you played it. I really hope you played it. A Fold Apart.
I did play this. Oh, I'm glad you're going to talk about this. Yes.
Yeah. So I love the innocence of this game. This is like 2 people with heavy anxiety dating each other. Like, this nails what that would be like. And it's just so cute of a puzzle game. Like, how did you like it?
It's so funny you bring this game up, because one of the awesome things about shifting some of my gaming to the Xbox is that I can play, and I know this is horrific, Velvet, but the money still goes to them, so it's a good thing. But I can play a lot of these games that I played on the PlayStation. I can play again on the Xbox now for achievements, dirty word. When, especially games that didn't have a stack on the PlayStation, and this A Fold Apart was in that situation. And so I'm actually playing it, at the moment, again, going back through it. And one of the things that I find, and probably it's a male chauvinistic point of view, Velvet, so I'm an old man, you'll have to just deal with it, I suppose, grit your teeth. But what I found interesting in that game was how strong the male character was. I'm going to go off, I'm going to be my architect, I'm going to do this or whatever. And the female's just expected to follow or whatever else. And it's very empowering the way that game moves forward, I think. And I think it's interesting because, again, I'm not sure who it's pitched at, what age sort of range it's pitched at, but it made me stop and think, and my eyes are open in the world, definitely, but about these gender stereotypes, about, that they should just wait or whatever else. And so I found that whole interplay really interesting, because it's not something I've seen in a game before, I don't think, or the games that I've played.
Well, it's you can choose the genders at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure it's like you can have male, male, female, female, male, female.
Oh, can you? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. You can do all 4, all 4 different versions of it. So, you can have 2 strong female leads, 2 strong male leads. Like, I kind of enjoy that they did that, but I do see what you're saying with the one partner is the breadwinner. Like, we're not going to get by unless I'm successful, so you need to drop everything you're doing. But it does kind of play into relationships a bit, because that is something that I think most couples go through and have to deal with. And this game is really good with like showing both sides, like what am I thinking? What am I feeling right now? And yeah, I really like how they handled that.
Yeah, that is interesting. You mentioned that, but I like that even more now, I suppose, because one of the things that stuck with me in that game was that often, the partner that, and it's a dreadful word for want of a better word, the breadwinner, or the more successful in the materialistic world, perhaps, or whatever, they're usually the one that's positive, they're happy and everything else. And that game does a wonderful turn where, and admittedly I played a gentleman, but I suppose you could play a lady there. As you said, they actually realize what they're missing, and the sadness that comes as well from being there. And I thought that was a nice thing, because I think we often under the illusion that, it's the person winning the money or whatever, living the high life while the other person stays at home. It's not always, positive and negative like you think, and I thought that was nicely touched on as well. But I want to ask you about the gameplay mechanics, an origami based game. How'd you find it?
Yeah, that was really different. I don't think I've played I don't think I've played another game that is a puzzle game like that, like folding paper to make the levels and get through each section. Like, I thought that was really, really cool and really unique for it. And it kind of fits into the theme of it because you are folding yourself into yourself and then you have to unfold to push forward. So I kind of like the play on words with the origami with that. But yeah, no, I really thought that was really cool.
It was, yeah. It's a really beautiful game, and I know it's only 100% game, but they matter too. Obviously, listeners, it's well worth your time. Now, I do want to ask you one more thing about this, Velvet. It's a mechanic that I like, but I can see that other people perhaps would not like it. Is that there is a hint feature built into the game, and I only bring it up, and not for trophy spamming, but I bring it up because in highly narrative games, one of the most frustrating things for me is getting stuck somewhere when you want to progress the story or whatever else, and your brain can't see it or whatever else, or you can't figure out how to do it, and you're therefore stuck unless you, I suppose, look up a guide or something. How do you feel? Like, did you even notice it was in there? Did it even raise any eyebrows for you? Do you have no problem with this sort of thing being included in this style of game?
I didn't have a problem with it in this game. Normally, I don't really use like the hint feature because I'd rather beat myself up for 2 hours trying to figure something out than look something up, but that's just because I'm stubborn. But with this game in particular, and maybe I'm just reading way too much into it, but because the game was based around emotions and again like anxieties of being separated from your partner, the help function or the hit function was the game just saying like it's okay to ask for help, like it's okay to ask for help. And I really like that they added that in there, and I'm assuming that's why they did. I hope that's why they did, but it could just be that they know that some of those puzzles are pretty tricky and they didn't want to ruin the flow of the story by having somebody get stuck. So it could go both ways.
Yes, yeah, that's very true. I like that. Good. I'm glad that one came up. Now, what do we have next?
Man, this long list. Have I passed like anything? Like that was about, I think that was about June. Was there anything before that?
Well, there was, but I'm not sure that you would have played this one. Infliction, the horror game. I'm not sure, by Caustic Reality, a Brisbane studio.
No, but I heard good things about that one.
Yeah, so I mean, we won't dwell on it or whatever, but if you do like horror games or whatever else, this is in a walking sim style, I suppose. There's high tension or whatever. It plays in a time loop like many horror games, so it therefore feels almost like a little vignettes, if you like, within the house. And it's a game that I know I've used this before. I think you've used this expression before, Velvet, as well. It's a game that had no right being as good as it was.
Yeah.
Considering where it came from. It graphically was good. The sound design was fantastic or whatever else. I believe it was only like a $20 Australian game, so nowhere, near a full price game or whatever else. And Blowfish, they're a really interesting publisher, obviously publishing predominantly Australian games, which we had the Untitled Goose Game recently as well, Moving Out as well. I don't know if you played that one, Velvet, the co-op game. So there are some wonderful games coming from Australia, but there's also some very interesting games coming as well. And they take on the full spectrum and push them out. But this was a hidden gem, this Infliction, if you haven't played it. And you like that style, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely check it out. Like I heard a lot of people talking about it and it was already getting coverage. So I didn't want to like step on anybody's toes with it. So I was like, all right, I'll just play it when I finally get a free moment. If that ever happens.
That's right. Now, the other one I'm going to throw out, I know you've played this one as well. I believe it may have frustrated you slightly, but only for 40 minutes. And I know people are going to grit their teeth because it is a rattle-like game, but not all rattle-like ports are equal. And of course, there's at the end of the day, they're just the people porting the game and publishing it or whatever else. Many of the games they're really freestanding games. Aside from trophy lists or whatever else, they're actually great games. And one of them for me this year, perhaps one of the best ones, was the 0000, which hit the consoles in February. I'm sure you did play this, Velvet, even if you
I struggled with it, but yes, I did play it.
It was a lo-fi, one-bit lo-fi platformer or whatever else. But I don't like platformers. I don't like games that are very, very fast. I don't like games that are a bit difficult or whatever and require skill. But I could live with all of that in this game because it was such a quick game, Velvet. You died, you put into a random new level. It was always changing. It had a wonderful music score, and it for a couple of dollars, it just shows you, and such a simple concept. It shows that there can still be a great experience had with that, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that one, there's a few Ratalaika games that when they come out, it's just like, okay, I'm struggling really hard for this, like what people call spam. And it's just like, okay, is this really spam? Like, am I just really bad at this? But that game was one of them. And the argument of like easy peasy, oh, trash, and all this stuff came up. And it's one of those that if they required you to complete all, what was it, 100 levels on there, um, nobody would have the platinum. So I'm kind of glad that Ratalaika did that one so that people would actually play it and finish it. But yeah, I struggled really, really hard with that. So
yeah,
I'm not ashamed.
No. I've got a friend who his goal this year, Velvet, it's an honest goal. He wanted to get 10 platinums this year. That was his goal.
Bless his heart.
Yeah, that's right. And he's not playing the 5-minute games. He did his Borderlands 3 and he does his big games or whatever. He's a skilled gamer without a doubt. And he was a little bit worried because he was only on 7 coming into December. And he's like, okay, CJ, you're going to have to hit me with some easy, quick games or whatever else. And so I threw him something. I didn't throw him 0, but it was some Ratalaika game or whatever else. And he's like, there was one trophy in this game. I think it was Gun Crazy or something. And I don't remember. There was a score trophy or something, high spam or whatever. And he did it for a couple of hours and he goes, this is just bullshit. This is too hard or something else. And I was like, I think you'll be fine. It's not a problem. And he just turned around and he said, and I think this is the crux of it, Velvet. He goes, well, you're only so skilled at these games because you play them 10 times across all the stats. And I think,
he's calling you out, CJ.
He's right though, isn't he, Velvet? The first time it's hard, but the 10th time it's really not.
Yeah, once you know what you're doing, it's good. And he probably wasn't following it like a guide or a video guide. Like, no, I'm going to do this like on my own, which I love when people do that. As a video guide creator, I shouldn't, but like I love when people struggle because they don't want to use a guide. Like, yes, that is what this game was meant to make you do.
Yes. Yeah, that is very true. He also did the Paradox. I want to call it Paradox Soul, but that's
that's a really good one. I'm glad you made him play that one. That's one of my favorite Ratalaika games. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and he did that without a guide. And looked, admittedly, I used the guide or whatever else, and he's like, I can't figure it out. How do you know where to go? And I was like, well, there's these things called video guides. No, I'm not going to do that. And it's wonderful to be refreshed, with some people that are just going to, as you say, they're just going to work it out themselves, even if it takes a while. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what should we go to next?
All right, so next, I don't know if you played this one, but it's the Yikes Forever Little Misfortune, which I've now realized that some of my favorite games this year all have a really dark theme to them. I didn't realize that until now. But yeah, Little Misfortune is one of my favorites that came out.
Tell me more about this game, because I think at the time I saw you put out a guide or you were playing it or something, and I thought, I'm going to like this. I'll pick it up, and I did, and I just, travesty again. I just haven't had time to get to it. But what can I expect in this game?
Yeah, so this one, it's about a little girl who has, well, I don't know if it's going to be spoilers. Should I do like a spoiler alert here? I feel like I should. Yeah, so it's about this little girl who has passed away, who doesn't know that she has passed away. So she's kind of maneuvering her way through the afterlife and going through memories and collecting these stickers that she puts in her little book. And she's so cute and she's so adorable. And it's such a dark theme for a child to go through. But yeah, one of her quotes, and it's just like, yikes forever. And I keep saying it to this day. Like, anytime something bad happens, just like, yikes forever.
I like it. It's so funny you touch on that dark subject matter, because so many of them dwell. I mean, one of my favorite indie games, Vanishing of Ethan Carter, it's an incredibly dark game or whatever else, again, involving a child. And I don't know, there's something... I don't know, maybe we had particularly harsh childhoods that we don't remember, but I don't know what it is, or maybe we want to see what that was like or something, but there's something clawing.
I think it's just raw. Like, I don't know, like you have the party games that are like fun. You have the, a lot of platformers, which is like adventurous, and the fighting games where it's like, yes, I'm the hero. But when it comes to like emotional stuff, like, it's just raw, and it's good to feel that. And just, I don't know, a lot of indie games did that this year. Now that I'm looking at the list, it's It's like, oh my goodness.
I like that. I like that. Where should we go next?
Evans Remains, which plays on the same kind of theme.
Yes. This is a beautiful, beautiful game, this one.
Gorgeous game. Gorgeous game. So this is the one Whitethorn game that I have on this list. I'm kind of bummed that they're the only one. But yeah, this was really, really well done. And again, with the puzzles, except a platform puzzle, which I love. So I can never really get enough of them. But this is, I would say, top 5 games of this year, just for how well it's done, how well it's written. And it's all by one person. One person made this entire game. And that blows my mind because that's such a cool thing.
It is, and it's one of those games. Again, it was some months ago since I played it, so perhaps correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe the trophy list, it complemented the game well. Not only did you have to finish it, but there were a few miscellaneous quirks in there as well that sort of got you going back and doing sections again. Potentially if you didn't use a guide, I suppose. So.
Yeah, there are a few. And it's kind of obvious where to get them. So if you don't look at the trophy list before you play, there's a pretty good chance that you will miss them. But yeah, no, it's not anything that made you lose your hair over or lose your mind over. And that's more Whitethorn's doing, because they love to make casual games for casual players and don't want to put any sort of like stress on the situation, especially when it comes with trophies and achievements. So I really appreciate that they didn't go super crazy with the list on that.
It's really funny word association. And before you correct me, I know that they weren't responsible for this. They only published it, but I can't think of that name and not think of that game. Unfortunately, the bees make honey. I am right there, aren't they? They only published that, so. It'll be forever ingrained in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's good because that's still a good game too. So I think that was one of their big ones last year, wasn't it? Like that's the one that kind of got them on the map a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And look, in full disclosure or whatever, I played it on PlayStation or whatever back when the bunny was a little bit annoying, but recently played it on the Xbox, much better this time. And look, it wasn't me, I know. So no, it's things improve, but an interesting experience nonetheless. Even the second time. I want to throw one out here because I think it's earlier in the year. I don't know if you played it or not. The FMV, I believe it was Sam Barlow, the Telling Lies, a sequel of sorts to Her Story.
I did not play that one. No.
Oh, this is one for your list, I feel.
Okay, I'll add it if I can find my pen. Okay.
I really enjoy this game because yes, you can use a guide, and if you use a guide, you'll really have no idea what's going on or whatever else, just typing in keywords. But if you play it like Her Story, which unfortunately isn't on the console, only on PC, if you play it in a manner of just exploring for yourself, it's basically just a set of videos. If you like, you have a search engine, a search bar, and you can type in a keyword, and it brings up a series of videos, and you watch the little videos anywhere from 10 seconds to a minute in length. And then you sort of decide on other keywords from what you hear. But of course, trying to find a through line is very difficult because you'll end up with videos all across different parts of the story. And admittedly, towards the end, you'll probably need a guide because you'll be missing a couple. It's very hard to figure out the words or the little vignettes that you're missing. But I played it without a guide the first time, and I think I got I think there was 180 videos, and I found maybe 120 of them. And so it was a really interesting take on the story. But then when I unlocked all the videos and I saw the full story, it almost changed it completely because now I understood these relationships and what was going on. And it reminded me a lot of, I don't know if you played this one, Velvet, a Square Enix, a bit of a nightmare in a way, The Quiet Man, a game that, were you familiar with this one?
No.
So this is another interesting one, maybe for game design more than actual gameplay. This is a game that there's no talking, it's all in silence. So there is talking in the game, but you can't hear anything. There's no sound effects. And you play the game. It's a bit of a button masher, beat 'em up I suppose. You play it like this or whatever, and then when you finish the game, you can replay it, but with the sound, and it totally changes your perspective of what was actually going on in the game. It completely changes, even though it's exactly the same scenes or whatever else. And this Telling Lies, it's a very similar premise, I suppose. So if you like the FMV genre and you like to do a little bit of work, I suppose it's well worth a look, and it's something special.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely check it out. I love games that, like, if you don't need to use well, you said you might need to use a guide, but the emotional journey, it sounds like you had an emotional journey with it. So I love games that offer something like that. So we'll definitely check that out.
That's wonderful. Next time I get accused of spending too much time on the system, I go, look, I'm going on an emotional journey.
Yeah, it works every time.
I like it. Now, where should we go next? Throw out another.
Well, I had The Last Campfire on here. I don't know if you want to go over that. Again.
Yeah, tell me what you liked about it.
Okay, so this, again, it's another dark theme because it's all like the afterlife. I don't know why the obsession with afterlife is 2020. But no, I thought this was really cute. It was, again, just another puzzler, which I'm just insanely attracted to. So it was really hard to not play it. But no, I thought it was really well done. It was really well put together. And even like a patch came out saying that they fixed a bunch of like the glitches. And I was like, I didn't run into any glitches whatsoever, but okay, sure. Like if you want to fix them. But no, it was really, really well done. And I thought it was really good. But what did you actually recommended this, didn't you? I think this is one that you recommended.
Yeah, I did. I love this game. And I just, as I said, I knew nothing about it. I just saw it come up on the store. And the only reason I decided to get it was because I really liked Ember, I think his name was, wasn't it? The little character. I just liked the art of the character. I thought it was really cool. It's like a little Ewok in a way with a hood or something. And I thought, this is wonderful. And I started to play it and I had no idea what was going on for quite some time. And I think that was the real hook in that game. It had some wonderful voice acting from the lady that I forget her name there, narrating it or whatever else, and it just sort of the forlorns. You didn't. Well, I didn't really understand why they were like that and what had happened. And when you start playing that game, as you say, it's incredibly dark because you're on the premise of helping these people, but they don't want to be helped. And
yeah.
It's such a strange thing because in video games, we're there to either kill things, Velvet, or to help them. That's all we do,
You can't refuse it. Like, let me help you. No.
Yes, we're not used to somebody just not wanting help. Yeah, a character not wanting help. So it was interesting. Yeah, I liked it. I thought the music was great and the visuals were fantastic. And it's so different from No Man's Sky as well, which, appealed to me.
Yeah, no, like when people heard that it was from Hello Games, it was just like, oh, didn't they do No Man's Sky? And it's like, yeah, and it's like, but this is nothing like that. And I was like, right, like that's such a good thing. Like they have such this like broad, I don't even know, like talents to like create something outside of No Man's Sky. And they're actually coming out with something next year too, if I remember correctly. And it's like, yes, please release all these things, please.
Yeah, I agree. And it's another good example, as I sort of said before, with the narrative where the puzzles were like, I didn't find them difficult at all. And I think the more you played it, you got into their mindset as well. So it could play for me like it was always continually moving forward, which I think is great. I really like that. So, if you're not a puzzle gamer, don't feel intimidated by this. It's a great one to jump into.
Yeah, it's got great pacing for sure.
What is next?
Next, I don't know if you played it. It's Suicide of Rachel Foster is on my list.
Oh, yes, I did play this, and my perspective on this game changed a lot, but I want to hear yours.
This game, I feel like I treated this so much like a horror game when it ended up, like, after playing it a couple of times, I was like, I can't believe I was, like, shivering on the first run through. Like, there was a point where I was staring at a hallway and I didn't move for like 10 minutes because I was like, I don't want to go down there. Can we just call it, like, we don't need to go down there. Like, we don't need jump scares or anything. Like, we're good. But again, it's another game that took a really, really dark turn. Really dark turn. But I thought it was really well done. Really well done. You kind of hated your character at the beginning. She came off as kind of like pompous and angry and just not fun to play. And then towards the end, it was just like, oh, okay, like, something happened to you. So, yeah, no, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it was. It's funny you mention that because I like the idea of playing horror games, Velvet, but I rarely do it in practice because I don't like the intensity of the game. And this does, I mean, the sound design in this game is phenomenal. The creaking doors and the floor, and
Yeah.
it
Oh, it's
definitely,
such the
yeah.
atmosphere it creates. It's just like, oh.
It is, but one of the things that I found, like, I really enjoyed the game as well, definitely advocate for it, but it was a very linear game. It was very narrative heavy or whatever else. And the first time I played it, I thought, I really enjoyed that or whatever. And then I did play it again or whatever else. And now I'm playing it a third time on the Xbox. So I obviously did enjoy it. But one of the things that I found in my second and third playthrough is it took forever because the hotel that's set in was so well designed and well built out, but the narrative and linear path of the game, it didn't really take you to a lot of places, or you didn't maybe see a lot of the detail. And I just thought, that so much work had been put into that place, into the pictures on the wall, some of the articles just lying around that, you could play the game in 2 to 3 hours or whatever it takes, but you could spend a lot more time in there really appreciating the design of the game.
Yeah, definitely. Like the main room, not the main room, but one of the rooms, the ballroom, is beautifully designed. And you only have to go in there for like maybe 20 seconds
Mhm.
to just bypass this part of the story. But it's like, why couldn't we be in here more? Like, this is a gorgeous room that we're just going to not explore. But there's definitely room to explore in that game. But I got lost a lot while playing. So I
Yeah.
learned to not explore as much the second time around.
I like that. I like that. Look, I'm going to throw out one more Ratalaika game. This is probably my second favorite Ratalaika game of the year. I'm not sure, published game, I should say. I'm not sure if you played this game or not. I actually reached out to the developer, and either he was not a fan of the show, Velvet, or he wasn't confident in his English. I'm not sure either way, but I'm gonna reach out again because I really enjoyed this game. Of course, the cardboard paper racer concept Destruction. I don't know if you came across this one this year.
Yeah, I played that one before Dino Roar
Mm.
told me about the settings that you can change so that you're not struggling so hard.
Yeah.
I played it on default, so it was not easy to
Mm.
play.
Mm.
But I thought it was pretty cool. Like, I love little artsy craftsy kind of games like that, and I've never seen anybody do not even a racer, but a destruction derby with them.
Mm.
And I thought it was a really cool concept and really well done.
Yeah, just a simple concept. And one of the great things I remember after playing it, perhaps why I liked it so much, is he actually put a lot of the models, he'd created models, he put photos of them on Twitter that he'd used to then go and animate for the game. And I thought that's wonderful, and again, a single developer or whatever. So, again, just a small priced, afternoon diversion. If you're interested, I suppose, listeners, what's up next, Velvet?
Up next, I don't think you played this one, and I'm pretty sure you didn't play this one actually, but Space Crew is so good. Oh my gosh, I wish everybody would play this one.
What is Space Crew?
Okay, so Space Crew is you run the Starship Enterprise. Like, you are the captain, you have your crew, you have to go save the galaxy. That's the only way I will ever explain it. But yeah, so it's kind of like an RPG game where you just man this 6-man ship and you go on missions and discover little alien planets and starships and everything, and you basically have to save the universe. But it's really stressful because you have to keep your crew alive, you have to keep your ship like well repaired while you're just getting bombarded by enemies. And I don't know, it was really fun, but stressful, but fun.
See, I see games like this. I remember looking at it, and I'm going to throw out another one, which I know is different, but similar idea here. I think it was I'll perhaps get this one wrong. I know it was a co-op game that you played a little bit, and it was a bit glitchy, and then I think you came back to it. I want to say Astrologer.
Oh, Astroneer.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
probably two very different games, but I see you playing these, and I'm like, this would be amazing to play, but these are massive time sinks for this genre. Am I correct there?
You are, yeah. So earlier, I don't think we were actually recording when I said it, but it's very rare that I'll play games that are like 8, 9 plus hours just because I don't have the time to really put into them.
Mm.
Astroneer itself is like a 25 plus hour game if you know what you're doing. And then Space Crew can easily take you 40 plus hours to complete just because you have to keep replaying a lot of stuff. But it's really rewarding. Both of those games are really rewarding, as like the more you learn, the better you get with it and the better rewards you get and all that stuff. So it's really easy to keep going back because you don't feel like it's a chore. You just feel like, no, I got to get this mission. I got to finish it. So I didn't mind the time sink on those.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. What do you have next? This list is growing, Velvet. It's wonderful.
It's yeah. I'm almost at the end. So I don't know if it counts as an indie. And I did you play Amnesia?
The new Amnesia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
You did.
you're to blame for this,
Okay.
because the funny thing is, for some reason, I believe we got the original Amnesia collection perhaps on PS Plus years ago or something. I feel because I had it for some reason. I'm like, I hear people talk about this. I'll play a little bit of it, and I know what it was. The wonderful R3 Cents podcast, the UK group, they were playing it as a recommended game to scare the shit out of them, I think. And I played a bit of it, and I was like, yeah, this is okay. I see what's going on, and then I put it aside. And I think the same week the Rebirth came out, and then for some reason I saw you were working on a guide for it. And now I could be wrong here, but perhaps not because of what you said with Suicide of Rachel Foster. I thought, well, Velvet doesn't play horror games. This mustn't be too bad.
It's not. There's a reason I don't play a lot of horror games, and it's because I get scared really easily. That, spine chilling, I don't want to move, knees locking thing happens every time I play a horror game, no matter what it is. If I have to go creeping around a corner, I don't want to. If I know there's going to be a jump scare, it's just I don't want to. No, I don't want to go down there.
But isn't this game built on that?
It is. But so this game was offered to me to actually write the guide, specifically for the guide for PST. And at first I was like, oh man, this is really out of my comfort zone. This is not something I'm used to, not something I usually do, nowhere near my normal games. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, maybe that's why you should do it. Step out of your comfort zone a little bit, just see if you can actually do it. And I did, and I haven't slept the same since. So
See, I've got to ask this because we mentioned this ages ago, but years and years ago, when I first got involved in the PSN Profiles community, and there was this event, and they picked a game for you, or there was a theme or something like this, and for some reason, Resident Evil 7 came up for this dude or whatever else, and he didn't play any horror games. He hated horror games. He didn't want to play any of them, but he was determined to do this event, Velvet, trophy hunters get. They get a little obsessed, as you know, and determined to do it. So he played Resident Evil 7, but he did it by watching a YouTube guide, always staying 2 or 3 minutes ahead of a full walkthrough.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
He wanted to know what was coming. He couldn't handle the pressure of the game or whatever else. And the funny thing with this Amnesia Rebirth is I did play a good 6 minutes of this one, and you start in it's true, you start in the airplane, I believe, in the Desert's Crashed, and it's am I thinking of the right game here? And then you walk.
Yeah, that's the right one.
I made it through the desert to the tunnel, and it gets pretty creepy even there, I thought, with the sound design, and that's where I'm currently at, which is probably about 6 minutes in, I suppose, to the game. But my understanding is it's also a pretty tough game. Is that correct, or is it just a tough plat?
Ish, kind of. Yeah, towards the end of the game, you really have to sneak around a lot, or else when you get caught by certain things, it's pretty much guaranteed that you'll die. And the more you die, the more insane you get. And then the little details in this game are so insane. So the guide that's written on PSN Profiles, the two gentlemen that wrote it, Squid and Minato, we were in a Discord chat writing our guides together. Like we were working on both of them together so that we could like go over each other's notes and just share what we found. And we were trying to test the trophy for keeping your sanity at bay because you could only die, I think it was like 3 times or something. And I was like, yeah, I died like 16 times. Like, definitely didn't get it. But my insanity was so high that I was hearing voices as I was playing the game. And like shadows would just like kind of be on the side of my screen. And oh, it just was the eeriest feeling ever. And it's like, oh my God.
It sounds amazing, but I'm not sure that it's for me. It's for me.
Yeah, like the kicker, oh my gosh, I still can't even believe. I have a video walkthrough guide that's not done because I can't edit out my like language or like the jump scares enough to make it postable. So I'm just like, well, all right, we're just gonna keep that to the side.
I'm glad you finally admitted that, because I had a few video guide creators and streamers on, and they're like, when we talk afterwards, they're like, "Oh, have you ever thought about streaming to me?" And I'm like, "Oh God, no! My language is atrocious. I'd get banned straight away. Nobody wants to hear that constant stream of of those words or whatever." But it's what I always thought you were all so relaxed that never happened to any of you. But that's good to see.
Oh no, just only with, there's a reason I don't play a lot of horror games, and it's because of that. Like it just they get me every time. Like oh my gosh. I don't know if you played Visage, but that's the next one that I'm going to be going through, and I'm dreading it so bad. So I'm just like, man, I'm going to like I need to leave the lights on.
That game, I didn't have that on my list, but I have played a little of that. I got that on Xbox at release, and that game is something else. That game is like a PT inspired, a walking sim horror. Some of the puzzles very difficult, so I'm glad to hear you're working on a guide there, Velvet, so I can get to the end. But that game is very oppressive. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I was cracking up because they just put out a patch, and usually patches like fix things or like maybe make something a little easier, but they patched it in so that your sanity meter doesn't show at certain points anymore. And it's like, okay, that's like, that's just cruel.
Life expectancy is going down on this end, Velvet. I need to be careful. Now, look, I know we're moving through. Again, I don't know the dates for this, so maybe it's still to come on your list, maybe not. But I want to throw it out there. Rain Swept. Did you play this at all this year?
Oh, why does that sound familiar? Did I play that? That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, so it's a point and click, I suppose, walking sim, highly narrative or whatever else. It's got a wonderful 80s vibe to it, if nothing else. And it's just it's just a simplistic narrative about a murder that happens at the beginning, I suppose. And you need to figure out how it sort of happens as you go through, and you play as a police detective, and you interact with some of the store shopkeepers or whatever else. And all up, it's about a 2 to 3 hour experience or whatever else. But it's a game that it's hard to describe, but it's a game, again, it's an indie game, so you judge your expectations accordingly with graphics or whatever, but still beautiful in its own right. But it's a game where the narrative almost, I could have read it as a book, I suppose. And there's not too many games where I feel like I could lift the narrative out, and if I didn't have the animation and the gameplay, I would still be entertained. And it was a very tight experience, I thought, that one.
Oh, that's good. That's almost like Drowning was very narrative heavy, where like the graphics was it Drowning? I'm pretty sure it was. No, I'm not so sure. But it's just like you're kind of just going through the motions as far as like the actual gameplay, but the narration and the text is what really draws you in. But I like that. Might have to check that one out. I know I bought it. I didn't play it. So.
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely would. It's funny you mentioned Drowning, because in effect that's a visual novel that's narrated, but you just push forward. And for some time, like I some people, they ask me, like, visual novels, you play a couple, you even read some of them occasionally, Velvet, and they're like, what would you recommend? And I'm like, oh, this, and this, but like you have to sort of say that it's just a book. That's what you're reading. There's no, I know there are some VNs now that incorporate, gameplay or whatever, but by and large, it's just a book or whatever else. There's nothing else there. There's a bit of, static imagery or whatever. And I just wonder, it seems like a lot of gamers, they're not ready to take that step. They like the pushing forward, even if there's just a little bit of sideways movement. That's enough for them. But this straight text narrative, perhaps it's just a little bit too much. I don't know. That's not what they're looking for.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people be like, "Oh, I want to play. I don't want to read. Like, if I wanted to read, I would just get a book." And I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
here's your book. You can play it. Like, you can have both worlds." But I get it. Like, it can be kind of strenuous on the eyes as well. That's part of the reason I don't play a lot of VNs, just because I need classes anyways, and it just makes it harder. But um, yeah, I don't know. As long as you're still like doing something to progress the story, I think it should be at least checked out. Like, give it a chance.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, we won't touch on VNs, too much today. Although I will throw out my pick of the year if you'll allow me, Velvet. I had a great
Oh,
time
of course.
with this one. Of course, the Hideki, I forget the other Japanese word, but naked butlers it translates to in English, and it's wonderful because VNs you can play. Predominantly, I'm interested in Japanese VNs because they're so abstract, Velvet. They're so different from what we read in Western culture or we read in a book here. And I know you can read, books from other cultures, but often the translation can be iffy, or especially if you require translation. But a lot of these VNs are translated very well through the localization process. But they just bring up things that we don't talk about in Western culture. They exist, but we sort of, I don't want to talk about that. And
The taboos.
yeah, the Japanese, for such a perceived staid culture, they really don't mind getting down and dirty in their culture as well, and looking at different things and just different takes. And I think that's what inspires me so much with VNs. It's not so much the story, although that's usually very entertaining as well, but just such a different perspective of the world, which are exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to like get a different sort of viewpoint on that stuff, because we're a very sheltered part of the world. There's a lot of stuff that just nope, can't talk about that, tisk. But yeah, definitely like the Japanese, especially the gaming culture, like even Persona 5. I know that's not a VN. Kind of, there's a lot of reading.
A lot of reading in that game.
It's like, maybe it's like borderline, but yeah, they touch on a lot of topics that you just really can't get away with here, and it's refreshing. Yeah. I think that's a good word. Like, we are allowed to acknowledge that stuff and talk about it, and I'm glad that they do, and I'm glad that they publish their games here still. So
yes, yeah, that's true. That's good. Well, where should we go to next?
Next I have it down. Well, that one's still broken. I'm waiting on a patch. Next I have Sackboy and Bug Snacks because they came out at the same time.
Okay, let's do Sackboy first because I haven't played this game. So tell me.
You haven't?
No.
Oh man. Okay, so I was really nervous about this one because the developers of Little Big Planet 1 and 2 were not the same as Little Big Planet 3. And Little Big Planet 3 really fell short of what it could have done. Like, it wasn't really that good. And I really hate saying that because that's one of my favorite franchises. But when I heard that they were doing Sackboy, it was like, oh man, are they going to ruin this one too? Like, please be good. And it's so good. It is so good. It's basically open world Little Big Planet, and you really need to check it out because it's really, really fun.
Okay, look, I have to ask here. I'm not a big platformer gamer. Again, it requires skill, so I tend to avoid it. How tough is the platforming in this game? I know it's predominantly a platformer.
It's not that hard at all, actually. It's really forgiving. Even the collectibles, like, you're not collecting like 500 prize bubbles on this one. It's really, really forgiving.
Okay. Now, the other question we have to ask, though, I don't want to get into new consoles and all that. Obviously, it's a cross-gen game, PS4, PS5. You played it on the PS4. It still runs fine there?
Yeah, it still runs beautifully. It does have loading screens. I feel like that's the big thing that people are complaining about because the PS5 doesn't. But
I'll let you in on a little secret here, Velvet. I think some of these people are bullshitting us on the PS5. And the reason I say that is because in a mutual Discord, there's a few, Sony ponies or whatever that also bought this Series X, and they've been playing some Forza Horizon 4. And I said, what's the time like between the race, when you start the race and you actually start the car, you load into it. They're like, there's nothing at all. You're going to be amazed, CJ. And I was like, well, that is amazing. Anyway, Velvet, I put it on. Now, it is very, very quick, but there is still a load screen there, and so I think they're bullshitting us a little bit, Velvet. I think.
Okay, yeah, because they're making it sound like it's just like there's nothing. Like you get a split second of black screen and then you're done. And it's like, do you though?
Yeah, I think I read, what was it this morning? Oh, that's this game wouldn't interest you at all, but the new MX GP 2020 game is coming out, which is wonderful because it's just a copy of every other year, basically. But they interviewed the lead dev on the game, and they kept obviously pushing the point about the performance, because it's been tailored for the PS5, not the Xbox at this stage. And he just kept banging on about no load times. And of course, if you've played these games, milestone games, the load times in the previous gen were minutes long. So it's going to be interesting to see what no load times actually means, I think, into the future.
I'm actually, now that you bring that up, I wonder about Gran Turismo 5 now, because those loading screens were atrocious. So I wonder if they're going to do that. There's no loading screen on the new gen. Just like, I don't know. How do you go from a 5-minute loading screen to none?
None. Yeah. It's I know we're really getting distracted here, Velvet. So if you're bored, please tell me. Please tell me. But I've been playing some of the Dirt 5 here. I've got to get some racing in here somehow, I suppose. Dirt 5 on the Xbox, and I played it on the base Xbox until the Series X arrived. And the funny thing is with that game is there literally is almost no loading. But the problem is now it's too quick, Velvet, because between the race finishing and all the XP screens, I don't have time to pick up the glass of wine anymore. So it's tragic. They will need to readjust these and put a
They're ruining your drinking game.
Well, a 3-lap race takes a while. You got to keep hydrated, I'm told. It's important. But look, let's come back to indies. Where shall we go next?
Okay, so I'm going to bring up one before. I did mention Bugsnax, but I'm going to do that one later because it's a good one. Did you play Carto?
No, I have this downloaded. Carto. Tell me about this.
I don't know if it's Carto or Carto. Like, I feel bad because I didn't double check before starting this, and I try to do that. But this is another little puzzler, but an actual puzzler that you're just putting together the world and then moving sections around so that you can continue with the story and just rearrange the map so that you can progress forward. And I thought it was a really cool concept. And it's about, I would say maybe like a 4 hour game. So not really too long, but my friend Pricey actually recommended it, and I'm glad he did. Like, I try to take everybody's recommendations to heart because you guys never really let me down with it. But yeah, no, if you do have it downloaded, I do highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. And of course, if you have Game Pass, I know that game is on there. So perhaps a way to check it out if you're on the PC or the Xbox. Now, shall we have a look at this Bugsnax?
Yeah, if you want.
I'm interested.
Dun, dun,
dun. I only played less than 5 at this point, and but I'm told that the story is really quirky the longer it goes on.
It is, yeah. So part of the reason this is one of, if not the game of the year for me, I still haven't fully decided. I'm almost there, but I'm just like, But this game, I did like a little written review for it, and the thing that stuck out with me is that it's a game that allows you to have fun, and it reminds you that it's okay to just laugh at silly things, to just have silly fun. Because I feel like a lot of games take themselves seriously, and especially after the dark games that we have been talking about on this list, it's fun for the sake of being fun. And it's not every day that a game comes out that is like that. And I really enjoyed that aspect to it.
Okay. Yeah. And it's not hugely long, I'm told, either. Is that correct?
No, it's not too long. Oh man, you could probably get it done in I would say 6 hours or so.
I want to just ask a little bit more about this because I know I assume you probably got an early copy of this because you did some work on it. You created a guide on it as well. One of the sticking points for me with this game was obviously if you got a PS5, you get this game for free. If you didn't, you get the luxury of paying for it on the PS4. How did it run on the 4 where you played it?
It ran pretty well. There was only like one or two glitch points, but I think those would have happened on the PS5 anyways. It was more of like a coding error versus an actual like an issue on the console itself. But yeah, no, it ran pretty well. It ran so well. I hope you laugh at this. So I ended up getting the code from Brian, PS5 Trophies, because he wanted all of the day one console guides, and like I was really, really lucky to get the Bug Snacks code from him. And when he posted my videos, somebody was like, wow, this looks really good on the PS5. I was like, oh, well, funny story.
It's another
They're
one
on the PS4.
it's another one of these dirty little secrets, isn't it, Vel?
Yeah, so it ran really well and it looked really, really good. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, okay, interesting. Where to next? I feel that we're moving towards the end of the year now.
yeah, kind of. But just one more thing on Bugsnax, because I wasn't the only one that wrote the guide on that. I did have help with Pricey. We co-opted it, so he deserves just as much credit for that guide. In case you guys check it out, so just throwing that out there.
Perfect, of course.
Okay, so next, Chicken Police. The Chicken Police. Oh. Did you play this? Did you play this and did you finish it?
So, Velvet, I did pick this up. It was too attractive a proposal not to, but you probably don't know this about me, but for a long time I've been suspicious of animals in human clothing. I've never trusted them. I can report that I do not trust a chicken, but it was wonderful personification. The dog in the coat in the police station, it was too much for me or whatever else. So I have not finished it yet, but I just found the whole thing hilarious, actually. But please tell me more about it.
Yeah, so it's a game that it takes itself seriously as satire, and it's done so well. Like, you kind of forget that you're playing a chicken if it weren't for the fact that you're staring at a chicken. But that just makes it even more ridiculous and just really, really enjoyable. But the story I was not expecting to be that good, and it ended up being a fantastic murder mystery of sorts, which, well, it turned into sort of a murder mystery, and then it just went off the rails from there. But yeah, it was really fun to play. And I don't know, one of my favorite parts is you come across a human statue at a house, and they kind of make fun of just like, oh, those are humans, they're mythical creatures. No, we're not. But yeah, it was really well done. I really, really enjoyed that one.
It's a funny game because when it came on the store, I immediately associated with that. Now I'm going to call it Black Sad or Black Sad. I think it was something like this, that was a similar vein story, animals personified as humans in a crime thing. But unfortunately, that game, it was just a broken mess, and I don't think it was ever fixed, unfortunately. But this game, obviously, different people, not the situation. But it reminded me of that straight away, except for when I started playing this. In the opening scene there, you've got the femme fatale or whatever with her issues or whatever there. And just the dialogue right from the very beginning was on the nose. And I thought, when it starts like this, it's just going to improve or whatever. And it's something I definitely need to go back to, I think.
Yeah, no, you at least need to finish the story because it just gets so much better. And yeah, it's really fun. It's a really fun game.
Yeah, I like that. Before you get to your next one, I might dump one in here. And I know that you haven't played this. Unfortunately, it's not available on PlayStation yet. It is on PC and Xbox. It may come to PlayStation in the next year. It's only a new game. It's called Welcome to Elk. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Velvet.
Ooh, I have not. I don't think I have.
So this is a game that, if you have access to a PC or the Xbox, it's definitely worth a look. I believe it may even be on sale at the moment on various sites or whatever else. And it's a very unique game. It's set in the north of Europe, somewhere sort of Scandinavia or something, but it's a bit fictitious as well, if you like. And it's a town of drunkards. Everybody drinks there, it's winter, and they're all drunk. And it starts off with a big moment in the bar or whatever else, a bit of karaoke, and it's people. It's quite obscene, people throwing up, and it's like this. But then it sort of tells this wonderfully bizarre story, and it's got some wonderful little collectibles that fill it out or whatever. But predominantly, it plays like a walking sim. There's no real puzzles in this game. It's always clear where to go. But and I know it's not a new thing, but one of the unique things in is you play a little bit and then you get like a bit of a motion video dropped in out of nowhere. It'll just be like a portion of the screen or, animated on a head, a real face talking. And you don't realize until you've played some of the game a little bit that it's real people from this village reliving this case. And it's not too much to spoil because it happens at the very beginning. But of course, they find a body that's, they've drunk, so much they collapsed outside and they've died, being frozen in or whatever from pneumonia. And it sort of goes off on this track. So again, dark, I suppose, but it's all these little juxtapositions of interviews with real people from, living in a similar town or whatever else and what's life is like for them. But I can't go into the major spoiler at the end, but when you move to the end of the game, it's something incredibly unique. And from a game design perspective or whatever, I think it's highly worth playing. It's something I've never seen in any game. And I know I say that, but definitely have never seen in any game. And it's a really wonderful, inclusive touch. So I think if you do get a chance to play this, Velvet, it's got some amazing folk music in it as well. But just for that last 5 minutes or so of the game, it's truly something special.
All right, I'll definitely add it to my list. You have me. I'm sold.
Good. Now, where should we go next?
Next, I have it down to two more. I have two more, but I don't know if the first one counts as an indie. Chronos, the prequel, to
yes.
Oh, I'm going to get it mixed up. Before the Ashes and the prequel to Remnant of Ashes. So I don't think that counts as an indie, but it's really good. For anybody who likes the Chronos type games, they're almost Souls-like in a way. Yeah, I guess you can call it a Souls type game. Is that a genre now? Is that what we're just gonna?
I think that's allowed. Is this co-op as well, or?
No, this one is not, which I was not prepared for. I was like, somebody's just gonna carry me through this, and then it's just like, nope, you got to do it your own. So, all right, that's cool. But no, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. So, definitely recommend that one. But the new one, such a good game. Shady Part of Me, which is just came out, but I feel like it deserves to be talked about.
Yes, yeah. It's so funny, isn't it? Because the last week or two, things on the store have really slowed down, obviously, with, the big AAAs coming out or whatever. Everyone's got out of the way, and now we're into the end of the year. And I thought, it's good. Finally, I can just pull aside what I want to play for the next 2 months, and there's not going to be much. And then this game just came out of nowhere, I think. And again, it's your responsibility because I saw that you were playing it and had done it. But tell me about it. What do you like about this?
Yeah, so I had no idea this game even existed, and I feel really bad about that because apparently it was announced at the Game Awards and I just completely missed it or something. Maybe I was still mad about the indie category just getting overlooked. But somebody was like, you need to check out this game. Like, you need to look at this game. So I was like, all right, let's see what it's about. But yeah, you play as this little girl who, again, it's a really dark theme, really, really dark theme. She is light and your shadow is kind of like the counterpart to it, but it's the same person. Like, you're kind of going through like a mental therapy of sort as you play through the game, and it really goes into like detail. I'm gonna try not spoiling it too much on that, but it plays a lot with a lot of people are comparing it to Contrast, which I did not play, and now I feel like I need to go play. But it plays a lot on light and angles and corners and just a lot of stuff like that with the puzzles. And I thought it was really well done. Like, I'm glad it came out before I made my indie list because I want to put it on there now.
Yeah, it really did. It's funny you make that that comparison with Contrast by Compulsion Games, because that studio has such a distinctive art style that started in Contrast, then went on to a We Happy Few, which I know is not everyone's favorite game by any stretch, or whatever else. But this game, it's hugely influenced, I'm sure, by Contrast because of the shadow play or whatever else, and light puzzles in the game or whatever else. But what I liked, and admittedly, I've only played the first act so far. Again, the puzzles I thought were very fair, at least in the first act. I'm not sure how much more difficult it gets, Velvet, as it goes.
Yeah, there's you'll run into, I'm just going to throw a number out there. I don't know if it's anywhere near correct. If there's like 200 puzzles in the game, you'll run into like maybe 3 or 4 that you're just going to have to kind of think on a little bit. But for the most part, they're easy to solve. And again, the pacing is done really well on it. And that's really important with puzzle games, as you mentioned before. But yeah, no, it's not too difficult at all.
Yeah, it has a wonderful soundtrack as well with it. I do have to ask you about the narrated voice. Now, look, I don't watch Game of Thrones, whatever, that's a slight on me, I suppose, but I understand it's some actress from that. This is a difficult voice for me to take, Velvet. Is that the point? Is it supposed to be like that, or is this just me?
Which one, though? The little girl or the shadow?
The little girl, yeah. I think that's the one speaking. The one that's a little harsh or quite harsh and high pitched. Is that the shadow or the girl?
Yeah, that's the little girl. Okay, so that's the light.
Yeah.
So that's light. I didn't know that was Game of Thrones. I gotta look that up.
Yeah.
I know nothing about the development team of this one because I was just so focused on finishing it and getting the content up, and now I got to go back. Yeah, so she's kind of whiny. She's kind of very like temperamental in a way. Very tries to be like more adult than she actually is. I did kind of notice that. She likes getting her way, even though she's not supposed to be getting her way.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the only thing that I found. One of the things that I really like, and I imagine there are collectibles in this game, the little birds or whatever, and the silhouettes of the birds in the shadow or whatever that you have to collect. And again, I'm not using a guide, although I did notice there's a wonderful system where you can go back in the game. It seems like you can almost go back to every point within a chapter. So that would make the cleanup easy if you didn't want to use a guide the first time through. But even, not worried about a guide, just getting the ones that I can get, some I can't figure out, and doing the puzzles. There's continually words for the narrative popping up in different places. And it's sort of, there's so much going on. I could almost see myself playing it again just to take all that in. I think it's very clever.
Yeah, so if you play it again, the mistake I made playing it the first time, and even I did a video, but it was just like to get it going, like people are using it to find things. But anyways, you're meant to move the characters together. So the words that appear on the walls are both the narration and the inner thoughts of the character that you're moving. So if you do one character at a time and just push them all the way forward and then move the second one, you miss out on the interaction between the two. So if you do play it again, make sure you're moving them both kind of at the same time so that you really get their interactions with each other on the level that I think the developer was going for.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And it's very, if you've played Contrast, I know, look, it's an old game, PS3. There were times where controlling the shadow and yourself, it was just a little bit, the perception was a little bit out. From what I've played so far, well in, I think, good 40 minutes or so in Act 1, I'm not sure how long the whole game is, it seems very seamless in transition between the two characters. So it's another.
It is,
positive. Yeah. And look, I have to throw it in. It's not a spoiler, really, but as I said, there are always times in these indie games or the things that I'm looking for, there's just these moments where you just smile or it just feel wonderful. And of course, in this game, it happened to me in the first act, Velvet. I'm sure there may be more. When you end up on the boat and the silhouetted boat, I don't know. I thought that was wonderful, that section.
Oh, the origami boat? Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll notice as you play along that everything in the game is either like cardboard or paper that you interact with, which is a really nice little touch to it. But I thought that part was going to be a lot more stressful because you have to move the shadow as the boat is moving. But yeah, no, it's one of those innocent things that they added to it, just like a little cute theme for it.
Yeah, I like that. So it sounds like we've come to sort of the end of your list. Is that
That's the last one.
I mean, it's been a massive year. It's been wonderful to talk to you about these, but I've got to ask: are there one or two things that you've got now, or 3 or 100? I don't know that you're anticipating playing. I suppose in the next few weeks or next month that you just haven't got to yet. Are there? So you can't talk to, but something.
Yeah. So in a perfect world, I would be able to get to everything, but that's not the case. But I actually just started Raise the Dead.
Ooh.
2 days ago, I think, and I really like that one. It's very Halloween themed for it. I have what's the other one? Yeah, I didn't make a list of like my to do. Pompu is another one that I want to get to. That's another little puzzler with some funky animations, but it just looks really cool.
Yeah, I like that. It's wonderful to speak to you because there's always so many games that I've never heard of, which I think, I consider myself somewhat well read in games across the year, but to speak to you, it just opens my eyes every single time. I'm going to throw one more out. I'm not sure if this is perhaps a little bit too dry for you or not, but it is, and I know I'm stretching it because only the last part came out this year, but it is. And I know I've talked on it before, but it's a game that I will push on you slightly as at least try it and see. As I said, it might just be a little bit too dry or whatever else, but it is an indie game. It is a one-man made game. It took forever to make, of course, but it is a truly unique experience, but of course not in the gameplay loops that you'd be used to. And it, of course, is the Kentucky Route Zero TV edition.
You brought it up. Yes, I played it, I finished it, and I loved it.
It's a hard game to recommend, isn't it? Because
it is. Okay, so it's hilarious that you brought this up because I have a friend who's just like, this is my game of the year. And I was like, this is not game of the year. Like, it drives him crazy every time I say that because I'm just like, no, stop it. But yeah, it released a little broken, and then they ended up patching it. Oh, and this is Annapurna published this, right? Yeah. Yes. But I played it kind of about the middle of this year, and it ended up being a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
It's just, I mean, I've talked on it before, but it's just a bit of everything in that game. And it's a game, I suppose, that requires you to be well read to a degree. I imagine it's quite difficult to find much value in it, perhaps if you don't have an interest in art, in music, in postmodernism in general, I suppose. But if you do, I think it's wonderful, and it's almost the sort of game, like I played a lot of it with my partner who hates games with a passion. I don't know why that would be, Velvet, but it's a situation here. But we really enjoyed it, and because there are musical numbers in there, there's a play in there or whatever else, and the ending, we obviously won't go into it, but the last chapter, it's not fast at all. It's very methodical, and it's all set roughly in one place, and the dialogues as you move around. And I thought it's wonderful to see somebody's making a game like this, and then also, and I know it did much better on PC than console, but a game that is also will be taken up by the community, greater community at large, because it is so different to your standard gameplay loops that we all play a lot of.
Yeah, no, definitely. The pacing is a little on the slow side, but I think it was meant to do that because, yeah, your main character just doesn't really want to do anything super fast. But it's a game that you can start up on the weekend just for a relax too. Like, it's not stressful at all. I don't want to say it's easy, so to speak. Like, you do have to put some effort into finding out where you're going and all that stuff. But I would recommend that game for sure. Like, again, not quite game of the year, but still recommended.
Well, look, we can agree to disagree, I suppose. I'm glad.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I just?
No,
I'm
not at
so
all.
sorry.
No, not
You're
at
now
all.
the second person I did that to.
No, not at all. It's funny, like, I mean, we loosely talk about trophies sometimes here, Velvet, so I'm going to throw one trophy question at you in that game. In Act 4, you do have to play the act twice. It's, an hour and a half or something, or whatever else. It's an interesting thing. I know you replay games, so it doesn't perhaps worry you, but I hate trophies like this. It's often a waste of time. But this is one of the rare exceptions where there was enough divergence between both paths that I thought it was worthwhile. So I don't know if that was in the back of your mind or.
Yeah, I'm used to playing things like a million times. So if I just have to replay a chapter, it's just like, all right, let's just replay a chapter.
I like that. So look, I do want to thank you so much for carving out a substantial amount of your time this evening, Velvet. I really do appreciate it. I feel that, perhaps we should do this more, but I understand you need time to recover, perhaps another year or so.
Well, I don't know. Like next year should be a pretty like new console. All the indies are getting their dev kits and all that stuff. So hopefully we see some good things. Maybe we'll do a 6-month revisit.
I will hold you. I'll hold you to that. I'll audio clip that now. But look, just in case any of our audience are under a rock, of course, everybody knows you. You're such a wonderful asset to the trophy community. Where can they find your content? Where can they find you?
All right, so I am on Twitter at 8bitsofvelvet. I'm also on YouTube under the same name, and you can also find me stomping my feet and giving orders and trying to get people to earn really silly trophies for really silly reasons as an event director over on PlayStationTrophies.org.
What a fun, passionate conversation about indie games. We covered so many games today, and there is really no one better to talk this topic than Velvet. She's a gem and a true asset, not only to the trophy hunting community, but to the whole gaming community. She's bridging the gap, not just with her content, but also her contact with all these developers, between gamers and developers. It's so wonderful to see. And even if you're a AAA hardcore gamer, you still have to respect the grassroots of this ecosystem we love to play in. Many wonderful ideas start out here, many new concepts start here, and many developers go on to create greatness from small steps. Your money really goes a long way with these developers. So if there were any of these games that you found interesting today, then go and pick them up. If there's other games, don't sit on them. They're usually small in price anyway. Pick them up. Yeah, these developers they'll respect it. They need it as well. And it's a wonderful service we can do as gamers to sustain not only their future, but look, our future as well as we continue to play and be amazed in this ecosystem. Seeing we ran a little longer today, I'm going to save all the Push2Plat Platinum shoutouts for next time. We only have 2 episodes left before the end of the year, so get those shoutouts in. Of course, if there are any games you want to throw in your top list, you've only got a couple of days to do it in, so you better be quick, and then you can do that via the Discord or Twitter on private message. The last piece of housekeeping, I suppose, today is I'd just like to take a moment and congratulate the Platcast on their 100th episode. I know we have many mutual listeners, but look, if you are a listener of Push2Plat and you haven't heard that Platcast, then jump on it. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough year for everyone, but particularly a tough year for them. They're really fine, upstanding gentlemen, wonderful gamers in their own right, and really aficionados of Sony, the history, and the games that are around. They produce a high-value show, and they're full of laughs. You may have heard both Plat, Zach, and Dylan on this show in the past, Chernobyl Ninja. They're wonderful, as I said, people, and I salute them on 100 episodes. It's no small feat at all, and they've produced what looks like a massive episode as a tribute to their audience. I look forward to having many more laughs at their hands in their wonderful show, The Platcast, available on all good podcasts. Well, I think that'll do us for this week, listeners. There's a lot to digest here, but whatever you're playing, whatever you're doing, have fun and be safe. It's been a privilege to talk to you today. See you soon. Push2Plat podcasts are conceived, written and edited by CJ Anderson in Adobe Audition, YouTube upload handled by repurpose.io, music licensing by artist.io. Push2Plat would like to thank all our Patreon supporters with special mention to our Patreon producers Zador VP, Redbeard Rick, Ready to eBeg and MZ Nitro. Without your support, this show would cease to exist. If you would like to say hi, jump into the Discord in the show notes or on Twitter at Push2Plat. If you're interested in supporting the show, then jump on Patreon, the Push2Plat Patreon, where you can find more information on how to support us and to allow us to continue to bring wonderful guests and topics from around the world.